meditation really helps you drop into your body. And there's so many benefits. Like it helps slow down your nervous system. So really to help you so for those who have like really bad anxiety, like start your morning with meditation for 30 days and let me know if something in your life hasn't changed, because I promise you it will.
Welcome to High on Self-Care. I'm your host, Stacey Zeal, yoga teacher, crystal lover, high-functioning stoner, and CEO of MaryZeal.com, a community for stoners who love cannabis and are looking to prioritize their self-care. On this podcast, we'll explore ways that meditation, mindfulness, yoga, and of course, all things weed can help you to elevate your self-care. We'll explore ways to truly value ourselves, use stillness for self-discovery, and cannabis to go higher on our journey. Think of me as your sister stoner who lovingly encourages you to prioritize yourself and reap the benefits of this magical plant. If you're ready to create a life that holds space for your most valuable asset, that's you, by the way, take a deep breath, light your J, and let's dive in. Hey y'all, welcome to High on Self-Care. My name is Stacey Zeal and welcome back if you are returning. Welcome if you are new here. I have an exciting, awesome guest for y'all today. This guest is a yoga teacher. She's a sound healer and a spiritual mentor. And I know for June, we've been talking about energy. So make sure you go back and listen to the last couple of episodes. We talked about kind of an overview of what energy is. We've talked about how to have friends around you who energize you. And we had a special Juneteenth episode that came out last week that talked about business and cannabis and all that kind of good stuff. So make sure you check those out. But today, y'all, I have an actual expert here to talk about energy. And I'm so excited. So welcome to the podcast, Liz Jones. How are you today?
Greetings, Stacey and the whole tribe. First of all, thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to be here. I'm excited.
Same. I'm so excited. Y'all, I've seen her on Instagram, like playing sound bowls and stuff like that. And that is like something that I'm just like, I'm newly getting into it. I'm very like, this sounds beautiful, but I don't understand how it works. So we're definitely going to go into all that. We're going to talk about surrendering. We're going to talk about, vision and all kinds of good stuff. So make sure you grab your joint or grab whatever you're smoking on, have a seat, grab your coffee. I have my special Peru coffee here because she lives in Peru and I want to go into that a little bit as well. So I would love for you to just give us a little bit about, just share a little bit about who you are, your journey, and how you got to Peru.
Yes. So who am I? So I love to start with, I'm just a regular Black girl from Brooklyn.
Come on, regular Black girl from Brooklyn. Come on.
I'm a regular Black girl from Brooklyn. But yeah, as you said, I am a registered yoga teacher. I am also a sound healer and sure, call myself a spiritual mentor. But a little bit about me and my journey. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, like any other Black girl in the hood. And it was really college that exposed me to the opportunity to travel. I went to Northeastern University. I was a sociology major, and they really prided themselves on global citizen. And this was before travel was trendy. And like, they really believed that like the way in which we were moving, like we needed to be citizens of the world. We needed to speak different languages. We needed to be, culturally flexible. And so I had opportunities to travel. So I traveled to Spain. That was my first travel opportunity, and it was a group trip with a professor and students. And then my first solo travel trip was to South Africa, and that completely changed my life. And on that trip, I went to Zimbabwe and Swaziland, and it became very clear to me that, the West will really paint the world in a certain way, and it'll show you the version of the world that it wants you to see. And I was like, wow, like, first of all, I'm like, the media lied. And it's like, if you want to, like, you have to go see the world for yourself and formulate your own perspective. Because I was in love with South Africa, and, the media will paint certain pictures of, what Africa is like. And literally my experience flipped every myth on its head. And I knew from there, like, I was like, wow, I want to travel the world, and I want like other Black girls from the hood to travel. And so that really kind of sparked my love for travel. Then I graduated and I worked at Uber, which was actually my only 9-to-5. And I held various roles there. I did customer support. I managed the customer support team. And then I was a regional learning and development specialist. And, I was hitting 5 years, and, there's a point where you love a company, you love a place, and then there becomes a point where you're just like, wait a minute, we're not aligned, like not aligned with the values. This doesn't excite me. And I really wanted to like, make tech more Black. And like, a lot of time, like when you're working at a company, you're going to bump against just like, all of the shit, the politics and the like, everything, and so I was like, you know what, all right, I gotta go, like I have to go. And I was just at a point in my life where I was just becoming depressed and anxious, and I was dating this girl, and that was bad, and I was like, something has to give. Like I was like, and this is like a good segue because this is kind of how I found like energy work and spiritual awakening. Like I remember feeling like, and I was, some people deal with anxiety their entire life. I was never that person, but I was at a point where I was so anxious. Like I was like, yo, I'm gonna have a heart attack. Like I cannot wake up with my body feeling like this every day. And I was just like, and I had a friend and she was just like, why don't you quit and travel? She's like, travel is the only thing you've always loved to do. And I was like, why don't I do what? And I did a little research, started Googling like Black girls who quit their job to travel, like cheapest countries in the world to travel. And I was like, okay, I'm doing this. And I worked at Uber, so we had equity. And I was like, I'm going to pull my equity and I'm going to like book a one-way ticket and travel the world and see what happens.
I love that.
Yeah. And so that's kind of what I did. I was traveling Southeast Asia, and then the Rona hit. So I ended up coming back to the US for a year. And honestly, that was when my spiritual awakening, and I started finding all of these energetic tools, all of these tools, yoga, meditation, sound healing, the chakras, Reiki. And then it's so crazy. Like once you unlock one tool, it's just like the rest just keeps, it just becomes this journey, and you just keep peeling back the layers. And we can dive in more, and I'll let you interrupt me because I can just go. But I would say that like the tools that really changed my life. Number one was meditation and journaling. Those are like the first tools that kind of found me. And then yoga found me when the George Floyd killing happened and all of the US was in an uproar. Like I was so triggered. Like I was supposed to be launching my business as a new entrepreneur, and all of that was happening. And my nervous system was like, whoop! Like, and I really went into like flight mode. And if like trauma responses were like fight, flight, freeze, and I was in like flight mode. And yoga really helped me just move through all of my own traumas that was rising to the surface. And so then I decided like I wanted to I felt like all of these gifts sound really helped me as well. And it was just like all of these tools, like I was like, wow, how do I share these? Like, I'm like, I felt like last year was really a year for me to use these tools for myself. Some people are like, learning to help others. I was trying to help myself. And then after I experienced them, I'm just like, wow, like we need to, I feel like, women of color, like we don't tap into these energetic tools because we just don't know about them, right? Or, in the West, they're so commercialized, right? When you think of yoga, what do you think of? Like white women in leggings, Lululemon. And it's just like, no, like it's a whole spiritual practice. You know what I mean? It's a whole philosophy. And so, my intention is to really, and the vehicle I'm doing it through is retreats, but it's to create these healing retreats around the world. So like Black women could get a taste of like the world, a little bougie and ratchetness, but also like healing tools that are really helpful. So I'm going to stop there and I'm going to let you interrupt.
That was magical and amazing. And I took some notes, and I'm just like, I want to hit on a couple of things that you said. And thank you so much for that introduction. And I so agree. Like I'm a yoga teacher as well. And I haven't taught like asana in the classroom in a while. So I'm more so just kind of talk about the energetic callings of yoga. I do yoga as part of my morning routine. I also meditate. And I agree with you, right? Like once you find one tool and you start to feel how much that can open you up, especially energetic wise, you start to find all these other tools and start to see like, well, how else can I feed myself? How else can I feel better? And I find, for me, I also had like an awakening last year, I feel like last year was a pause for me, right? It was such a like, okay, this is how your life has been going. You're happy with your life, happy with your job. I work in tech as well. So I'm like, I feel you about I look this week at work and it's just been crazy with all the like, just all the politics, all the dick swinging contests, all that kind of stuff. I hate it. And so it's just like last year I had this kind of pause where I was just like, how do I want to live my life? How do I want my life to actually look? And that's where, when I started my cannabis business, that's where, for me, cannabis literally changed my life. And I feel this thing, like how you were saying with meditation and journaling and stuff like that, like cannabis literally changed my life because it helped me to get sleep. I have insomnia. The people, if you've been on the podcast before, my cannabis story, the reason I turned to it is because I fell asleep driving and I had that like awakening moment. And I think it's so interesting because you said that you also had like, this moment where you're just like, okay, something has to give, something has to change. And so I would love to kind of talk about, how do you identify those moments? Like what does that look like in your life? And how do our listeners kind of identify that's going on in their life? And I ask because I think that right now I'm in an awakening. I'm seeing a lot of people being in an awakening. People are deciding if you're going to make me go back in the office from being remote, I'm going to just quit and find me a remote job. Like people are pushing back, and we are seeing people kind of start to some rumblings, I guess, of some awakening. So how do we identify that in our lives? Let's just start there. Yeah.
That's such a great question. And I love to say, which is like, our bodies are our greatest teachers, and our bodies are always sending us signals, messages, but the question is, are we listening? Right. Yeah. And also I think, we give our mind so much credit. We're like, I'm smart, I'm analytical, I know what I'm doing. Right. And it's just like, we discredit the body, right? You're in pain, you discredit it. And it's just like, I think anxiety, right, is a indicator. Depression is an indicator, feeling antsy, like having your heart is beating so fast, you feel something in your gut, you're calling out of work, you're avoiding, you're people pleasing, like all of these are signs. But like, I think a lot of time what we do is we justify it, right? So we say like, oh, it's not, the job is not that bad, the relationship is not that bad. And it's like, no, it's bad. Mm-hmm. Right? Or we think like, oh, it'll get better, you know what I mean? And it's like, no, it will not get better, right? Our bodies doing these things, it means you're out of alignment, right? Even physical like issues, ailments, like when your skin is, if your skin is jumping off the wall, as I like to say, right? Like if your skin is acting, all of this is like, and that's the thing, and we can talk about that a little more, but like any illness, disease, like first it manifests in the energetic body and then it manifests in the physical body. It's literally your body screaming like something is not right. Even weight, like, a lot of times we just think like, I just can't lose weight, or like, I'm just big. And like, a lot of times we're hanging on to like trauma or emotional things. And it's just like, so I would really say, like, I think you're starting to listen to your body is like a really beautiful indicator, of when things are off and not right. Even in my business, right? I remember after I launched my first coaching program, I was so ungrounded. Like I was and I had to, and of course I have these energetic, like I have the tools, but like, and yes, in the beginning of your awakening, or, when you're moving through something, when you're shedding, you are going to need your tools more than not, right? You may need to do yoga more, get to your mat. You may need to meditate every day, but I needed to do so much just to stay grounded. And I was like, I don't want to do this every day. Mm-hmm. It's like, I shouldn't have to go for a 2-hour walk in nature just to feel grounded. And like, yes, nature is helpful, but it was just like, it was telling me that like, I'm a little over my head with this thing. And actually that was when I decided like, I just want to travel and launch retreats. I was like, I don't want to create this program and scale it and rinse and repeat and build this $1 million business. I was like, that's not my path either, right? And so it's not, we're constantly have to check in, like, am I in alignment or am I out of alignment? Am I in alignment or I'm out? And your body would tell you. And I'm not saying your goals shouldn't be ambitious and it may not be challenging and they may not be fear, but when you're doing things in life, like, you should not feel ungrounded. Because if you do, you're probably out of alignment.
Yeah. I so feel that because, and I've talked about that before on the podcast, and the example that I give for my life that goes exactly with what you're saying is about 4 or 5 years ago, I decided to become a makeup artist, and marketing is my full-time thing. It's what I love. It's what I've done since college. And so I was at a point where I didn't like the job I was at, and I was just like, well, it has to be marketing, right? Like, because I come from a family and a background where it's like, you find that one thing, you work there for the rest of your life, and you retire. And so I'm thinking like, okay, it must be marketing. So I'm like, okay, so so this girl literally, I remember she begged me to do her makeup, and I did it. And I was just like, oh, that was fun. And so I dove in head fucking first to becoming a makeup artist. I bought the kit, I bought the makeup, I went on the trips, I did the education, I all the things. Didn't even stop to ask myself if this is what I like to do. Did I really enjoy what I was doing? I was so out of alignment, and it felt chaotic. Like, for me, like, it just felt like chaos. Like it was, trying to get clients and marketing is my thing. And so it's like, the marketing of myself is what I enjoyed, but I didn't actually enjoy being this close to people. I didn't actually enjoy, doing makeup. Like I like to do my own makeup. I didn't enjoy doing other people's makeup so much. And so I so relate to what you're saying, because it's like, if you're out of alignment, it feels like it's chaotic. It feels like you're not grounded. And even if you do go back to your tools, like you do go back to your yoga, you do go back to your meditation, it's still, there's something just gnawing at you, right? And even sometimes that might even come up in meditation, right? Or like, if you're meditating, especially, for me, like I like to meditate high. And so like, if I'm high, I'm really like, okay, what is actually coming up? Because my mind is clear. I'm not stressed or I'm not anxious. I'm feeling really kind of connected to my practice. And so I'm paying attention to like, what is consistently coming up? And that's how I make sure that I'm in alignment now, because I know, now I'm in alignment, because now I'm doing what I like. My energy's up, even when I am drained from, because I've just had a long last couple of days. And even when I'm drained, I'm still excited to be here and still excited to do that. So I love that you talked about, just being ungrounded. And even if you have your tools, but, sometimes it's just not right for you. It's just, I love that.
And like you said, and I love that you said that, and which is so true, is like, these tools help to create the space so you can hear yourself, so even, and meditation is my favorite. And I'm like, it's so simple. And it's such a free, like, you could download a free app. And that's the thing with so many of these, I think the most profound tools are free and they're simple, and really they're just bringing you back to yourself. And like, that is the whole thing with meditation and sound healing and yoga, is to quiet the mind so you can actually hear yourself, you know what I mean? To get still, because we're overstimulated. We're working, we're hustling, we're texting, we on Instagram, we on Twitter, we on YouTube, we on, right? And it's just like, sometimes you can't hear yourself. You can't hear that inner, that inner voice. And like you said, like, these tools will help you be like, no, that ain't it, or like, help you really feel like, no, I want to spend more time dancing, or I want to spend more time traveling, or, my inner child needs love, whatever the thing is. So I love that you brought that up.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's so important for people to understand that it's okay to pivot, right? Like, I think, for me, I know, at least for myself, I felt like I was crazy because I was bouncing between, like, I was yoga teacher, then I was makeup artist, then I was just like, okay, I'm just gonna, I had my business on the side. So I had so many things going on, right? And I was always looking outside of myself for the answers. But until I actually stopped and started to really listen to myself, that's when I got in alignment. That's when I started to see my vision. And one of the things you said in one of your recent lives was activate your vision, activate your story. And I love that. And I remember, always just saying back in those chaotic times when I was just like, what is my story? I don't have a story. I don't know my story. And it's like, I was looking outside for my story, right? Like I thought my story was going to come in the package of how someone else I saw, so any other gurus and people doing what I wanted to do, right? I thought that was how my story was supposed to look. So can you talk a little bit about that? Like how, activate your vision, activate your story, like what you meant by that, and how, how that is just so impactful for like a spiritual awakening.
Yes, I love that. And first of all, I'm obsessed with people's stories. Like it's like my gift. I just meet people and I just keep peeling back the layers because like you said, a lot of people say, I think a few things. One, a lot of people say that, right? I don't have a story. I'm like, yes, you do. Everyone has a story. Right. And right. Also, so yeah, I think so much of it is just like, and here's the thing, our story is connected to so many things, right? It's connected to your brand, it's connected to your why, it's connected to how you see the world, it's connected to your experience. And so, I think what I found, coaching, so many entrepreneurs, mostly entrepreneurs, like people who want to start a brand and business, is that a lot of it is remembering, right? So, well, it's two things, right? It's like before you can activate your story, right? Or activate your vision, I think first it's processing it, right? So a lot of our stories are painful, right? They have painful parts, right? And there are a few things like one, we either choose not to remember, right? We choose not to talk about it, or no one has ever created the space for us to even talk about it, right? At work, nobody cares about your story, right? It's unprofessional to talk about your story, to talk about your journey, to talk about your truth. Even this is beautiful that you're bringing, cannabis and spirituality and awakening. And it's like, because it's all of us, right? And so I think, to activate your vision, first you have to own your story, right? And it does take sitting with, right? And first mapping out, like, I always say, like, if you have to split your journey into like chapters, like how many chapters would there be? Like how many parts are there? What are the moments that change your life? What are the moments that change how you see the world, and really starting there. And a lot of times our vision is connected to our story, right? If there's something that you want to create in life, first of all, yes, create it, but then also, your why, the why is going to matter, right? Why you, like, why should I listen to you? Why should I buy from you? Why are you the expert? And it's going to be your story. It's going to be the journey. It's going to be what you went through. And I think so many of us are just living out versions of our lives that aren't ours, right? And I think that's what awakening is. Awakening is deciding to question everything. It's like, I'm gonna question everything in my life and I'm gonna see, did I choose this or did somebody place this on me, right? And again, it's back to that remembering. A lot of times, like as kids, we know what we wanna be, we know what we wanna do, or we know how we want to spend our lives, because kids they're not thinking about getting hurt. They're not thinking about failure. They're not thinking about money. And so what I've found is a lot of activating people's vision is going back to their inner child, is going back to their inner play, because a lot of us have like trauma around our gifts, or someone didn't cultivate it, or whatever the thing is. And so I think the more we start to own our truth and like, no, this is my truth. Like my truth is that I'm Black, I'm from Brooklyn, I'm a lesbian, I love to travel. You know what I mean? Like I grew up practicing religion and now I do not resonate with none of that. I'm spiritual, like, and the more I can start to activate and remember new parts of myself, the more full I feel, the more I can bring it into my experience. And I think, so starting with your story and then, deciding what is my vision? How do I want my life to look? What do I want to feel more of? How do I want to express myself? I think so much of life, and I'm a rebel. I'm like, listen, we're not made to work and all of that. I'm like, we are made to be, to express. And then, I truly believe like we can bring in abundance from our gifts, which can be anything. And so yeah, I think, our starts with our story. And then our vision and our stories are so connected, because even a lot of time when you think about the impact we want to make in the world, it's connected to something we've been through, right? It's like an older version of ourselves, right? The whole, even my mission to like show Black women the world is safe, merge travel and spirituality. It's because I didn't have that, right? Like I didn't get to travel as a kid, or like, it was scary moving around New York City, feeling safe in my body. So now all of what I'm doing is just reclaiming all of that, right? It's remembering. So, yeah. And I think we all have yeah, I find that more and more, like people are just that throat chakra. There's so much like shame connected to our stories, and like we're not empowered to share it. And I find it's so freeing, like for you and for the people that you impact, right? Because another thing I find with our brands and social media is like, and like by us sharing our truth, like we are giving the next person permission, you know what I mean? And it's just like by you even creating this space to like openly talk about these things, like you're giving the next woman permission to like do cannabis, like, you know what I mean? And so many times, like the more we share our stories, we heal ourselves, and then we basically create space for the next person to be like, oh yeah, I've been through that too, and it doesn't define me, or like, oh yeah, I want to do that as well. So I think there's so much like just liberation in like Black women's stories. Like,
I
and this
agree.
last thing I'll say, one more thing, is I feel that, it's why I love social media and branding and entrepreneurship, is that I always felt like, society, like if you like, Black girl from East New York, like society has already wrote my story, right? Like I should be poor, I should be uneducated, I shouldn't be well spoken, I shouldn't be well traveled, I probably should be in jail, I probably should have babies. And I was like, you know what? Like I always felt like, no, I want to write the narrative, you know what I mean? And it's like, I find that through branding and entrepreneurship, like I get to write the story, you know what I mean? Like I get to tell my own narrative, and like how healing is that, like literally every space we go in, like people are throwing a story on us, and it's like, no, I'm telling this story. So I encourage like more people to own their story. And yeah.
I love all that you said. So many gems in there, y'all. And one of the things that kind of just like jumped out my spirit, I mean, so many things, was when you said society's already written our story. And I think that is so important for us to understand, right? Like it's so easy to just go on this path of what society wants you to do, or what society expects you to do, right? What our parents expect us to do, what, people who care about us, people who don't care about us, whatever. People expect so many things, particularly us Black women, right? We have to look a certain way, we have to act a certain way, we have to do a certain, do things that are, that they deem worthy, right? Like we have to go fit into their box. And I hate boxes. I'm also a rebel, right? Like I'm just like, I remember I cut my hair when I was working at a law office, and I just was like, I want my hair like this. And my hair's been like this for 8 years now, 9 years, like that, something like that. So that's just a part of my vision, part of my story, right? And so I think that, one of the things you also said was processing your story. And I think that's such a piece that I was missing when I was trying to search for my story, right? I was just like, well, I don't have a story like this person or like that person, but really like the person who I needed to check with on the story was me. Like I needed to sit with myself and allow myself that space to just say like, okay, Stacey, what has impacted you? And, literally like falling asleep driving was literally a wake up call moment for me, because it was so scary. And it was a moment and I have known I had insomnia. I just said, I think it's normal. People have sleep problems. 50 to 70 million people have sleep problems in the United States, right? So it's normalized and hustle culture and all that kind of stuff, all that, sleep when you die, all that kind of stuff is normalized. And so I thought that, my sleep problems were normal until my body physically said, oh no, girl, you can't just push through this anymore. You're not in you're not in your 20s no more, right? Or you're not in your early 20s no more. So, you need to pay attention to your body and to actually, figure out how to get good sleep. And so I encourage, those who are listening to really if you don't think you have a story, right? Or even if you think your story is boring, like, I don't think my story is that interesting, right? Until I started to tell it. And so people started to be like, oh, that's interesting. Or people started to realize, oh, cannabis helps you with sleep. That makes sense to me because I also have sleep problems. So now that opens up a door in their mind to say, well, maybe this isn't such a bad thing. And that has literally happened to me recently. My aunt, who I knew had sleep problems, she called me and was just saying like, hey, I was listening to your podcast and I want to try cannabis for sleep. And I'm just like, that's so circular for me, because, seeing her have sleep problems is what made me think it was normal, right? Like I knew people in my family had sleep problems. Society tells us that sleep problems are normal. And so we just feed into that. And so I fed into that until my body said, no, girl, you need to take a pause and figure this out. So I love that, all of that you were saying. So I think one of the things I would love for people to take away from this is to really just like sit down with yourself, make space for yourself, right? Because it's so easy to just get caught up in listening to what everybody listens to everybody else. And, for me, cannabis helps me to kind of bring me down. It helps me to turn off the voices, turn off the noise, have a singular thought, focus on something and really just think. So what are some things, I guess, that we can do to help to activate that vision, help activate this story, how to create space for us. We talked a little bit about meditation and journaling and sound healing. So can you go into those types of things and how that helps to heal us energetically and spiritually?
Yes. So where do I start?
Wherever you like.
So I will say like meditation and journaling are my favorite tools. And if you're new to meditation and you're like, what is meditation? How do I meditate? So my favorite app, it's a free app. It's called Insight Timer. And there are a lot of really great meditation leaders up there. And I actually mostly listen to like the Black women and Black men. So, I wanted like to share that as well, which is like, there's some really great poetic meditation leaders on those apps. But meditation is basically, how do you even describe meditation? It's a really powerful tool that so again, like we have a monkey mind, like our mind is going. And meditation is a tool that basically not bring your mind into stillness, because we can't stop the mind, but it's basically, it's the intention of it is to get us to observe our thoughts, right? So many times we're attached to our thoughts, right? We have a thought and we think we are the thought, right? And the point of meditation is to get you to observe your thoughts, right? So, I mean, my yoga teacher would say that guided meditations are not meditation. So like in our yoga practice, like when we're meditating, you're actually just sitting in stillness and you're choosing what you're concentrating on, right? So they'll normally invite you to concentrate on the breath, right? And that's it. Really concentrate on the breath. And then your mind might wander. You might be like, oh, what am I cooking for night? What am I cooking for dinner tonight? And then you're like, oh, just bring your attention back to the breath, right? Oh, what am I doing? What am I doing later? It's like, nope, bring your attention back to the breath. So that's like in yoga tradition, like that is kind of like how we see meditation, but guided meditations are really beautiful. My favorite ones are like future self meditations. And there's so many different ones. There's lots of different ones, but like future self meditations are really beautiful. But I would say what I like to do is like whatever I'm wrestling with, like I would put that in the search bar of the app. So if that's like abundance mindset, so if you feel like you're really stuck in scarcity and you feel like you don't have enough money and you're never going to have enough money and all of the things, like do an abundance mindset meditation. Or maybe you're feeling really ungrounded, so you can do like a grounding meditation. And it also is a really powerful tool to help you get out of the mind and into the body. So another thing that I really found before spiritual awakening, which I kind of said a little, which is like, we're so in our heads, like we are in the upper part of our body, but we are so disconnected from the lower parts of our bodies. And meditation really helps you drop into your body. And there's so many benefits. Like it helps slow down your nervous system. So really to help you so for those who have like really bad anxiety, like start your morning with meditation for 30 days and let me know if something in your life hasn't changed, because I promise you it will. But that, and then in terms of the journaling practice, like I find writing to be so healing. And it's so funny because I was the person, I never journaled. Well, I did journal, but I got in trouble with some of the things that I wrote as a kid. So I stopped journaling. I never journaled. And I used to just be like, oh, my friends are my diary. But I found that a writing practice is really helpful to start to create awareness. So really another thing people are really out of touch with, which is their feelings, right? And it's like, if you ask somebody, how do they feel? They're like, I'm good. It's like, what does that mean? Right. And so I find that adults are really out of touch. So really helping people start to write, like, are you sad? Are you happy? Are you mad? Are you scared? Like, those are like the core feeling emotions, but really starting to write like, oh, today I feel angry, right? And write about it. Or today I feel sad and write about it and really start to express. And then also to, do affirmations, affirm the things that you want to be true. Also a gratitude practice, right? Gratefulness. It's so easy to just focus on the lack. I don't have this. I don't have this. I don't want this. This isn't working. And so I found like starting to write daily, like, what am I grateful for? What is working in my life? And then starting to write like what's working and what's not working, I found to be really, really helpful, because you start to cultivate that self-awareness. You know what I mean? Like if scrolling on Instagram every day is draining you, then why are you scrolling on Instagram every day? You know what I mean? If hanging around these friends is draining you, why are you still hanging with them? So really starting to cultivate that, and then just starting to manifest through writing your dreams. I think a lot of time we don't give ourselves permission to want the things we want. And it's like, start writing out the things that you want to attract more of in your life, and also start being that thing. So if you want to feel more, adventurous, do something adventurous. If you want to feel more connected, do something, call a friend, text a friend, go to an event.
So yeah, I definitely love all that stuff for sure. And I love the app, and I'll make sure that I put some of those resources that she mentioned in the show notes, y'all. So you go to maryzeal.com/24. You'll get links to all the stuff she mentioned and her stuff as well. We're not wrapping yet, because I still got a couple more questions. But I love what you're saying. Because I think one of the things that comes up for me with that is just giving yourself permission to check in with yourself, to see where you're at, to want to get to where you're going, right? And then that's how you start to manifest it, because it's like, I love journaling as well. And I started journaling last year during the pandemic. And I had never been a journaler either, right? Like I remember being a kid, and me and an ex-friend of mine, like we used to pass notes all the time. It was always her, and we used to get in trouble for passing notes. But I've never been much of a writer. And so last year, when I really started to actually journal every day, or journal as a part of my evening routine. And if you guys need help creating a morning routine or evening routine, head over to maryzeal.com/free. I have a free morning routine checklist over there that you can download to teach you how to create a productive morning for, our cannabis lovers out there. But, once I started journaling every day, I started to realize how powerful it is, and how even sometimes it just gets the thoughts out of my head. Like I literally now I'm at the point where I went from not really writing at all to having a journal practice that I do damn near daily. And I always try to check in at the end of the day to kind of get my thoughts out of my head. And now I also have a brain dump book. So where I'm just like, this is my book for where I just have so many thoughts going on in my head. I just need to get them out of my head, right? Cause I keep thinking about it. I keep obsessing over it. And I just need to just write it down and release it. And I find writing just to be so releasing, energetic wise. I do always feel a release, after I finish journaling. And so it's so amazing to me that how our energy is just so connected. And one of the episodes I talked about earlier this month was, for me, I believe self-care creates energy creates abundance, right? When I wasn't sleeping, I could not create abundance, right? Because part of my body was off balance. And that's what cannabis essentially does in our body. It tries to balance us out. But I was so off balance because I wasn't getting any sleep. I wasn't paying attention to myself. I was so hustle, trying to get this side hustle to work, trying to get that side hustle to work, trying to do so many things and do all the things, right? But then I didn't see the magical change in my life until I started to tap into me, until I started to actually just say, Stacey, what do you like? What do you want to do? Checking in with myself, making time to sit with yourself and to check in with yourself is so important, y'all. So important. And for me, routines work, plans work. I'm not somebody who can just wing it. I mean, I can, but if I really want to get it done every day, I need to have a plan. I need to have action steps and say this is what I'm going to do every day. So I'm not even thinking about it. So many things. I really encourage people to definitely start meditating and start journaling. And I agree, do it for 30 days, report back to us and see, if you haven't seen a change in your life, I'm telling you, you will, because it's mindfulness, meditation, all that stuff is just so important. And I think, now I'm happy to see so many people talking about it now. Because I've been a yogi for years, and I've been a yogi for a long time. And so I started to, I remember I read Meditations from the Mat. That's a book, and I'll link that in the show notes. And that really kind of opened my eyes up to the other side of yoga that's more about energy and, chakras and balance and stuff like that, rather than just the poses. Because I thought yoga was just the poses. So can we go into a little bit about yoga? And then also I want to talk about sound healing after we talk about yoga.
Yes, yes. And I love that you brought that up. So where do we start talking about yoga? Yeah. So, and to Stacey's point, like so many people, when you think of yoga, you think of what we call the asana, which is the physical practice, right? So yoga, it actually means union, right? It's a Sanskrit word. It means union. It means to yoke. And the whole philosophy and spiritual practice is really about bringing us into union with yourself, union with your body, union with everything around you. And it's this idea that like, we're all connected. What I do to you, I do to me. What I do to the earth, I do to me, right? And we're seeing that, right? We are not kind to the earth, and the earth is popping off right now. And it's just like, or even, this pandemic, it's like, it's this one thing, the US likes to think we all like to think we're so separate, and we see how we're all impacted, how fast this thing moves, how, it's impacting everything. And it's like, yeah, because union, okay, it's like, and it's just like, and it's, and that's so different from the West, right? Where in the West, everything is so individualistic, and it's me and it's I, and it's, how can I get more? And it's just like, again, union, we're all connected. And so there are 8 limbs of yoga, right? So kind of 8 paths to union, right? And so the physical practice is called the asana, which is the 3rd limb. But there are different limbs, and essentially it's just ways to elevate, to ascend. And so some of them are like the yamas, which are the restraints, which are the things we don't do. The niyamas are the observances. We have the asana, which is the physical practice. We have breath work. We have pranayama, which is breath work, which is another really powerful tool to help. Breath, we don't have breath, we don't have life, right? And so to really help us to come back to our breath and regulate our nervous system, we have pratyahara, we have dharana, we have dhyana, we have samadhi. So there are these different ways to, again, bring us into union. And I love it and that's why it's called a practice, right? You never arrive, right? You never arrive. There's always more work to do. But the question is, how do I, and it's a huge philosophy. Like you could study for years, right? My yoga teacher, she actually studied in India in an ashram, just studying, right? But it's basically like, how can we start to incorporate some of these things so we can have a more full life, so we can be, have more moments of bliss, have more moments of, and really pull back the veil. A lot of our life in the West is so much illusion, so much illusion. And so much illusion,
it really is. It really is. It's a lot of, I so agree with you. It's a lot of illusion and a lot of, a lot of, I think that's the perfect word. It's a lot of illusion, because it's like we as people are seeing this life, like saying like, oh, this is how it's supposed to be. This is how it's supposed to live on the West and stuff like that. But then it's like, you go to other countries, and that's why I love traveling so much as well. And that's one of my goals, is to just be able to leave corporate and travel the world and, join all the Black girls. Cause I see all of y'all and I'm just like, I'm coming, y'all. I'm gonna get my flight. I promise. I'm gonna be there. And so I think that the more you start to challenge your current reality, that starts to open your mind up to challenging other realities. So I love that you were saying like that illusion exists. And it's up to us to see that illusion and to say like, you know what, that doesn't work for my life. Let me figure out what I can do to fix that for my life. And I do believe that, definitely yoga helps you to center yourself and to sit with yourself and really like, figure that out. Because I love what you were saying before, as well as about how it's a practice. You never arrive, and you have to accept that you will never arrive. I think that was the part for me with yoga that was the hardest, is like surrendering to the outcome and realizing like, okay, every time I get on my mat is a different moment, right? Like it doesn't matter what I did yesterday or whether I nailed that pose yesterday. It doesn't matter if I'm going to nail that pose tomorrow or if I'm even going to come to class tomorrow, because I might not even make it tomorrow, right? But this moment on my mat is what I have right now. So I have to accept my body for where she's at, where she's doing, and how she's feeling today, and honor that and surrender to the fact that it will always be a practice. And I think that helps people. And that's helped me to bring self-care into my life more regularly, and to bring yoga into my life more regularly, because we never arrive, but the destination, the journey is so beautiful that you just want to stay on it.
Yeah. And that's the whole thing, right? And it's so funny because I don't have any of my yoga practice on my timeline, but it's because, it's my own thing I need to move through. But, to your point, people think like, oh, I can't do yoga, or yoga's not for me. And even the physical practice, the whole thing, it's an invitation. And that's the belief, right? The way you show up on the mat is how you show up in real life. And the whole invitation, not about the posture, it's not about the movement. It's really about the self-talk, right? So are you gentle with yourself on your mat? Or are you like, are you looking around at your neighbor like, oh, what is she doing? Or are you like, damn, you should be doing more, or go deeper in this pose, or like, whatever it is. And it's like, those are probably the behaviors that are happening in your real life. A lot of negative self-talk, a lot of harshness.
Perfectionism,
comparison. So, and that's what I love about the mat. It's just an invitation to explore how you are, in real life. And then, of course, there's also which was really eye-opening for me. So I actually did 2 yoga trainings. So the first one I did online, and that was a trauma-informed one. And then I did my second yoga training here in Peru in person. That's what brought me to Peru. But one thing that was, and this is probably a whole nother podcast, but, really, which I think first of all, I think everyone should take yoga teach training, even if you never want to teach. But really understanding trauma and the relationship with the body, that was eye-opening for me. And everyone should also take a trauma course, right? Like, really understanding, number one, first of all, if you're alive, you've probably been through some trauma. I think we think of trauma in terms of like the big things that happen, but, trauma is just anything that like your nervous system, it's too much, too fast, too soon for your nervous system. So your nervous system can't regulate it. And when you're a kid, your nervous system is like you're less developed, and there's less that you have the tools to handle. And so just really understanding that trauma gets trapped in the body. And so, again, in the West, we love talk therapy, and we love, talking things out, being so analytical, and really understanding that there are these tools that helped you move through trauma, one, without talking about it, and two, really like you have to release it from the body. And so that was mind-blowing for me. And the yoga practice, the asana, really in helping people. And there's so many people who like disassociate, are not in their body. They do a lot of numbing. So a lot of drinking, a lot of alcohol, a lot of, all of these things, which I've been there. So I'm not like calling out other people. I'm calling out older versions of myself. But the physical practice really helps you to get back into your body and to really move the trauma out of your body and to really work with trauma. I think that was when I was just like in love, not in love, but it really, really helped me. Because like I was so ungrounded.
Yeah, I definitely feel that. For me, like being ungrounded feels chaotic, right? Like I like to always feel grounded. And one of the things that I've been recently, just kind of picking up on and seeing more people do are sound bowls and sound healing and stuff like that. So I would love for you to kind of talk about what that is and kind of how does it work? How does that work with, healing us energetic wise, talking to people who may not have really heard it, don't really understand it, me, but are very intrigued because it sounds beautiful. And you can just, I kind of like, I feel like when I hear a sound bowl, I can feel like, oh my goodness, this feels so good to just listen to. And one of my favorite artists, Janae Aiko, she put sound bowls throughout one of her albums recently. And I'm just like, okay, now I need to know all the things about sound healing.
Yeah, shout out to Janae Chalumba. I'm like, yo, she was infusing the healing and people didn't even know it.
Come on.
She's amazing. But yeah, and I love to tell stories. So I'll kind of tell how I found sound healing. And I love that you said that. You're like, you can feel the vibration. And I remember, I think I kind of was exposed to them when I was in Bali and traveling, like kind of saw them here and there. And I remember I came back home to the US and I was like, I want a sound bowl. So like my sister, she bought me a little baby Tibetan one and I just had it, but I never played it. And I'll go back to, again, it was the George Floyd killing was happening. The US was a hot mess and I felt trapped because travel was my love. And I was like, I'm trapped here. Like, I hate this country. I hate this place. Like, and the police brutality and the violence. And it just brought up all of my own traumas. And I had a friend and I was supposed to be launching my first course. And I was literally in freeze mode. I was like, F this business, F Instagram. Like, I didn't want to exist. And I had a friend, she was also in my business course, and she was like, wait, like, I remember we had a call, like we had our a coaching call, and I just cried at the end of the call. My coach was like, how are you? And I was like, I don't want to do none of this. And my friend was like, wait, like, can I gift you a sound healing? And I was like, you sure can, girl. Like, what's up? Like, and she's incredible. She's actually here in Peru with me. But her name is Spirit of the Frequency if y'all want to follow her. But she does sound healing and she also sings. And I remember she gifted me this session and we barely even talked about, like, she did a little of like, okay, what's present for you? And then she just sang and played and I just cried. And I'll never forget, I was sitting outside under a tree and she's singing, she's playing, and I'm crying. And it felt so ancient. I mean, her voice sounds really ancient, but it just, like you said, like, I just felt like I felt, and that's another thing, like crying is an energetic release. And I just felt a release. And I'll never forget, like after that, I was good. I was like, oh, what's up? Like I'm doing this, I'm launching. And I launched my first program. I had like a 10K launch. And I was like, wait a minute, what just happened? Like, I didn't even understand what had happened, but and for me, spirituality is like trendy right now and stuff. For me, any tool that finds, like, I don't just go and like, oh, let me go in a class and learn about it. Like, I have to have had the tool and it have moved something in me. And now I'm like, tell me more. So, and I love to share that because there are people that's like, I'm going to go take a class. And it's like, no, like be guided by your intuition, And so I love to say like that moment really made me, I became really curious after that because it was just like, I felt like, sound healing just unlocked something that other tools didn't. But so that's like my experience with it, but a little bit about, just talking even about energy work. So we're very acquainted with our physical bodies, right? But a lot of times we have energy bodies, right? And so the basis of most energy work is what we call the chakras. And this is also a Sanskrit word. It means spinning wheel. So essentially we have 7 sort of energy portals, if you will, that facilitate our well-being, right? So when they're balanced, the wheels are spinning, right? And then when they're not balanced, if the wheels are blocked, they're not spinning. And then we will see basically, like, not to say like disease, but then they'll be like, we won't be in harmony, right? And so there are 7 chakras. So we have the root chakra, the sacral, the solar plexus, the heart, the throat, the third eye, and the crown chakra. And I won't go like too deep into them unless you want me to.
Girl, go, because look, I got a chakra tattoo on my arm, so I love chakras. I am all in, and we haven't talked a lot about chakras on the podcast because I've wanted someone who, like, I feel like I learned about chakras in yoga teacher training. It was one of those things, like, how when you're in yoga teacher training, there are pieces of it that you just really kind of resonate with. And chakras definitely was one of those pieces that I really resonated with, that I really just was like, I started to dive in a little more. I started to read books, but I haven't really revisited them in a while. So I would love for you to, like, I'm just sitting here taking notes, like, okay, so follow your curiosity.
Yeah. I mean, I for the same, like, of all the things I've learned, chakras have resonated on the highest level. Because it's the basis of, there are many different tools, but it is the basis. So I can dive in a little more. So our first chakra is the root chakra, which is located at the base of the spine. And this is essentially connected to us feeling safe, feeling secure, feeling like we can provide for our basic needs, right? So like, am I safe? Am I grounded? Am I protected? And that's the root chakra. Our next one is our sacral chakra, which this is located below the belly button, so in our like reproductive area, and this is connected to our sexuality, sensuality, and creativity, right? So when this is unblocked, you know, we feel creative, we feel worthy of abundance, we're able to attract abundance. And when this is blocked, we feel creatively blocked, right? We feel, you know, maybe we're stuck in scarcity, maybe it's hard to receive pleasure, joy, all of those things. And then our third chakra is the solar plexus. So this is located above our belly button. And this is connected all to our confidence, right? Our power. You know, do I feel confident? Do I feel powerful? Do I feel like I can just stand in my truth? And then we have our heart chakra, which is connected to love, right? Do I feel worthy of love? Is it easy to receive love? Is it easy to give love? Is it easy to forgive? Next, we have the throat chakra, which is expression, right? So do I feel comfortable expressing my truth, speaking my truth, saying what's on my mind, activating my story? So really power in our voice. And then we have the third eye, which is all about intuition, right? So, you know, do I feel connected to my vision, to the things that I know to be true, to the things that I see? So that's all intuition. And then our crown chakra is spirituality. So do I feel connected to something beyond myself, to the divine, to, you know, things I can't see, all of those things. And each chakra has like a color and there's so much you can go into. So even like, and this is the part I don't know a lot about, but like, even like any, like most disease, like is connected to a specific chakra, right? And there's so many different ways that you can work with them. So like my favorite way is to sound healing. So a little bit about sound healing. So I play crystal sound bowls. So they're quartz. And a full set of sound bowls, there are seven bowls, and each bowl is a different note. So starting from C, so the root chakra is a C note, and then it goes up C, D, E, F, G. G is not a note. A, B. So each bowl is tuned to a different note, a different frequency, and is connected to a different chakra. So let's say if we're working with a client or someone who's really struggling with, maybe they have a mother wound and they're really struggling with forgiveness and compassion, that is the heart chakra, right? And so we will work with like a heart chakra bowl and, you know, forgiveness mantra, meditation. And yeah, essentially, you know, everything is vibration, everything is frequency, and frequency can help bring us back into balance, into harmony. And so the sound bowls, they slow down your nervous system, they bring your body into stillness, they slow down your mind, and they really help you drop into your body. And then also, of course, they're connected to a chakra, so it will help you bring that chakra into balance without talking about it, which is what I love to share. So a lot of people will couple sound therapy with talking, but you can literally, you know, and that's a beautiful thing about so many of these Eastern practices, which is like we can move through trauma, through blocks without talking about things, right? From this energetic realm of feeling, like you said, and it's real. And I think at least for me, like finding all these tools was so affirming, because I felt like these are things I always felt, but I didn't have the language, you know, when in your gut, you're like, I don't like this person, or this person doesn't feel safe, or, you know, this ain't right. But, you know, we're taught to suppress that. We're taught like, oh, nah, you know, suck it up or figure it out or work through it. And it's like, I feel like all of this gives you permission to trust yourself. You know what I mean? It gives you permission. And it's like, yeah, I mean, music is healing. You know what I mean? Like, that's not new. That's ancient. You know, people sat in circles, they sang, you know, they played instruments. And so I feel like a lot of what we're doing is going back. Even you talking about cannabis, you know, I don't really smoke. I could never get into it. Maybe you'll help me out. But like I've smoked before, but I was just like, okay, whatever. But being here in Peru, like I've been doing plant medicine, and I mean, cannabis is a plant medicine, right? It's plants, and it's just like all of this. And someone said that here. There was like there's an herb for every like illness. Like we can heal our bodies with all of this stuff. Is healing. You know what I mean? And the U.S. and the West has demonized it or commercialized it or monetized it, and it's so much but like when you go to these countries and you go back to the root, this week or last week I did ayahuasca and wachuma, and they're plants, and it's like we can heal nations with this stuff. You know what I mean? Like, and so I feel like we're all just going back to this ancient wisdom and destigmatizing. And it's like, and this is what I mean, like people got to travel. We got to learn, like, the West, these things were healing modalities for people. Like the same thing with cannabis, like, you know what I mean? They were talking about here in our ceremony, they were like, coca leaves, which are really huge here, they were like, coca leaves will heal like everything. But, then they were saying poison, what's the quote? The dose makes poison, you know what I mean? And they're like, the West turned it into like cocaine, but they're like, in its pure form, like it's a healing thing. So
that's awesome. I did not know that. Shoot, that's one of the things I love about, as you were saying about cannabis and about these kind of different more Eastern practices and things like that. Because like, cannabis for one has been around forever, right? It's been around longer than we have. So it's like, it's such a healing plant. And I think that's for me, like, why I gravitated towards it so much, and why that's why I wanted to share. And that's why I started to see my story shift towards sharing the impact, because cannabis literally changed my life. Like I didn't realize how impactful not getting enough sleep was on my, how much it was on my life, right? Like I didn't realize how much more energetic and abundant and happy and good I can feel when I actually get a good night's sleep. And then, that just grew into using it so intentionally for so many other things, because I just was like, okay, well, I can fix my sleep. Let me learn more about the plant. Let me learn more about the chemical makeup. Why is this actually helping me with sleep? And so I think that's one of the things, I encourage people to start with is education. And I do have my beginner to bud bust guide on maryzeal.com/free, because that will kind of like, so I think that the first place you start with, if you want to introduce cannabis into your life, just like if you want to do like energy work or sound healing and chakras and balancing and stuff like that, is to really like understand what it is and how it works and what it's for, and then you can take that and adapt that into your life and whatever it sees fit. Because, whether that's smoking or not, you don't have to smoke it. You can do whatever. You can take tinctures, you can do edibles, you can do all kinds of stuff. And so I think that it's just important to really just like be intentional with it, be intentional with your healing, be intentional with your curiosity towards yourself and making space for yourself so that you can have that curiosity. And it's just, I just love, so I love that I'm kind of bringing so many more Eastern practices into my life. It started with yoga, and then it just grew into plant medicine and really just like healing and sound healing and just opening myself up. Like I've seen myself literally come so far from when it comes to these types of things. I remember taking yoga classes and being that person that was looking around like, oh, I need to be able to nail Bird of Paradise. I need to be able to nail this. I need to like, look at that person. They're great. They're doing this. Like, and then then the shifts happens and you're like, no, I'm supposed to be paying attention to myself. How am I feeling? How are you, Stacey? How are you in this moment? And then you move through it. And so that's just it's so magical. And so I've just loved this conversation that we've had. Like we could literally talk all day, but I don't want to hold you. So can you please let us know like where and what's coming up for you, where our listeners can connect with you? And, I'll make sure I put all your notes and stuff in the show notes as well, y'all. But this has just been such a great conversation. So let us know how we can connect with you and what's next.
Yes, thank you so much. So you can find me on Instagram at by Liz Jones. So that's just BY and then Liz LIZJONES. Ways you can work with me or what is exciting. So I am launching a plant medicine retreat for women of color in Peru. I'm so excited. We are actually launching that next week. So yeah, I will be launching more healing retreats around the world, but this is the first one, which is really exciting, which is the Peru one, which it'll all be focused on reconnection is the theme. So reconnecting with the land, with yourself, with your body, and with soul sisters. So us really activating that Shakti energy and tapping into our divine feminine energy, Yeah, so it'll be a mix of ceremonies, there'll be sound healing, there'll be yoga, we'll be doing plant medicine as well, we'll be doing hikes. And so it'll really be really dope. So some adventure, some ratchetness, and some healing. Yeah.
I love that. I'm gonna make sure I check it out because I need a retreat. And and one of the things I've been thinking about is, figuring out how we can do some cannabis retreats and stuff like that, cannabis with self-care and types. Because I think, people are ready to get out the house. I know I am. I'm ready to be in a different country on a beach, preferably, or something, doing, smoking some weed, doing some yoga. So I love that. So thank you so much again for coming on the show. It's been so awesome having you here. And guys, make sure you head over to maryzeal.com/24, where I'll have a link to all of Liz's stuff. I'll have some information about the retreats and how you can kind of work with her and all that. But again, make sure you leave us a review. Make sure you subscribe to the show. Make sure you leave us a review. Reviews help the show to kind of get out to more people and to reach other folks. So leave us a review, subscribe, and I will see y'all next week. OMG, I could talk about that all day, sis. Want to get more insights like this to your inbox every week? Say less. Just head over to maryzeal.com/subscribe to join our newsletter.